I am so happy when I'm performing. I am truly happy when that's it. I tried to be feminine because I was single. And I was always hoping there'd be a nice single Jewish doctor in the audience that would say, she's funny, but she'd make a good wife. So I never made myself grotesque because from the beginning, also it was a different time. I was coming after the Phyllis Dillers. And I was going to say after Lucille Ball's. Lucille Ball was beautiful. Nobody remembers that. But I was coming after the Toady Fields, after the ladies that had to be, if you were pretty, you were a singer, you weren't a comedian. It was that simple. I did an appearance on Lucille Ball's show, and she was brilliant. She was, I mean, I knew every lens they were using, and I remember we went back after lunch to redo something, and she said to the cameraman, literally, Harry, that looks like it's about 2.5 inches off. And he said, Lucy, it's just where it was. And she said, she was tough, measure it, it's 2.5 inches off. And it was about 2.5. She knew. She would say to you something like, okay, the punchline's going to be, I'm going to say, eat the pie. Count to 3 before you answer me, because that's how long the applause will take, or that's how long the laugh will take. She was right. She was right. She was absolutely a masterclass. I don't even know on stage what's going to come out. I always say my act is like a deck of cards, and I throw them up in the air, and out of 52, I'll probably use about 40 that night, but I have no idea where they're coming or which order they're going to come out in. George Carlin, they said you could set your clock to exactly what he was doing. I work totally loose, very freeform, but I come out of Second City. Second City was not a little bit of a challenge, it was a major challenge. It was a boys' club, and the girls were really there to be pretty and f***ed. And they just didn't understand me at all, and they weren't gracious. You had to go on stage and fight for your life to get what you wanted in. Oh, they weren't going to let you in, and they weren't going to be gracious, and they weren't going to say, I had an idea for a thing. You'd have to say, wait, you're doing that thing with the old man. I'm going to come in now and be an old lady. They never would say, try it. It was very tough, very tough.
But you learned a lot there.
Oh, Second City changed my life because I realized that I was a writer. I didn't have to sit down and do it. If it comes out verbally, what does it matter? You've thought of it and you've created it. Oh, Second City. To this day, everything I do on stage is right out of Second City. Seize the moment. If somebody faints in the audience, go with it. You can't do the next line. You can't step over the body. You got to say, there's a body here. I remember the first 2 weeks I was there, no one spoke to me. And I would go into a supermarket to buy milk, and I couldn't find where to place my voice. I was like, got any milk? And then I ended up the queen of Second City, but that was a whole other thing. This sounds so stupid. I walk on a stage, I start to smile. This is where I belong. Laurence Olivier once said to me, the great actor, that is my spot, that is my space, do not enter it. And I walk on stage, this is mine, and this is where I belong. And I am so happy on stage. I have forgotten deaths. I was in labor with Melissa, my daughter, on stage. You forget everything. I've had abscessed teeth on stage. You walk on stage, you forget it all. Forget it all. It's where you should be. I find myself in rehearsal when you're doing your stupid rehearsing. I walk on stage. This is it. This is where I belong. Done. I think humor is absolutely DNA. I think there's no such thing. You can't develop it. I always feel so sorry for people who go to comedy classes. You either have it or you don't. It's my father was funny. My sister is a lawyer. She is so funny. I think she wins her cases by being funny. That the juries go, she's smart, but she's funny too. It's in your head, and it's music. You know when to talk. And I'm sure you've heard that over and over again. You absolutely know when to pause, when to talk. And you know who the genius was? Knowing when to shut up and wait? Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson would say something like, how fat was she? And if it took me 10 minutes to figure out the answer, he knew he wasn't going to answer or say a thing until the right line came out. He was genius at that. I was the Woody Allen era, George Carlin, that was my group. Bill Cosby came a little before. No women. I was the only woman in when we'd all sit with numbers. It was, all of us lined up and me. And a very homely singing girl, Barbra Streisand. That was who was in the group at that point. And everybody got picked ahead of me. Cosby was taken out, Woody was taken out, George Carlin, and I was the only one, not 7 years. And they would come and they would say things like, they would always say, there's a very funny girl down there, you should see her. Then they'd say, too rough, too wild, talking about things a woman shouldn't talk about. They always had a reason, not good. And finally, after 7 years, I was brought up to the Carson show about 9 times, audition, and the last audition was in front of a secretary who was eating lunch. It was terrible, terrible. And finally, Bill Cosby was on one night, and the comic on with him bombed. Just terrible. It was on The Tonight Show. And he said, you might as well use Joan Rivers. She can't be worse than that guy. And that's why they put me on. And Carson and I clicked. He got me immediately. And on the air, he said to me, you're going to be a star. And it still gets me. 7 years of just being left behind, of not being the one picked, never being the one picked. And then all this, in one night, your life, every door is open to you. Amazing time. Oh, the reason I wasn't put on, because they said a woman doesn't talk about things like that. A woman shouldn't talk about that. Shouldn't talk about having an affair with a married man. No. Shouldn't talk about all her friends having abortions. Oh, this is much too rough. I suddenly became Carson's rival, which was stupid. I was going on Fox. Fox had 5 stations in those days. Carson absolutely tried to kill me. Really, not physically myself, but try. Is that what you want to talk about? Which part?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I got my own show on Fox, and Fox, they didn't even have numbers then. You know what I mean? They had 5 affiliates when they started. Silly. But I suddenly became a threat to Carson. And he did everything. He said I never told him. The first one I called was Carson. I've always been very proud of that, because, all these lies that have come out. She never called Carson. She didn't tell Johnny. Bullshit. I called him. He hung up on me. I called him again. And the second time when I called him, his wife said he's not here. I said, he was in that big house in Malibu. I said, it's one room. He had this huge, major glass. I said, he's there. It's one room. He's there. And he never spoke to me again. Ever. I would, now, dissolve. I was fired from Fox. My husband committed suicide. I was out of work. I was broke. I couldn't get myself arrested. I would see him in a restaurant. He still wouldn't talk to me. Mean, what do you want? I'm dead. Put a blanket over me. Bad man. Sorry. Most brilliant straight man. Carson was the most brilliant straight man ever. Ever. Nobody touches him. The most brilliant in late night ever. And they're wonderful people in there late night now. I mean, I think they're just amazing. But mean son of a bitch. It was so bad that no one was allowed to talk to me after the Carson show. And I was having lunch in a restaurant, And this sounds so silly. Ed McMahon got up, walked over to say hello to me. And I knew that if it ever gets back to Carson, he'll be in trouble. And Doc was, they were all wonderful. They were lovely. I thought Carson was lovely. You have to tell the truth. That's what comedy is all about. If you cannot say, hey, I had a bad date the other night, unless you had the damn bad date. Because the audience knows. Somewhere the audience knows. I am absolutely an actress. And that's why when comedians get a chance to act, they always get an Academy Award. You know, they're, oh my God, she was Betty White. She's brilliant. She's an actress, you idiots. I mean, Tina Fey, that's no stretch to go into a movie. Because whatever you're doing on stage, when you're telling the same joke 5,611 times, and it sounds like you just thought of it, figure it out, that's acting. But I do find it funny that people absolutely think I am who I am on stage, which is just a loudmouth, screaming, fighting, furious at everything. But that's my comic persona. Everyone forgets Charlie Chaplin could speak. Lucille Ball was a very sexy woman off stage. I mean, Phyllis Diller was one of the chicest women you have ever seen. And yet on stage, elegant. First time I met her, she was in a Christian Dior suit. I can tell you just what the suit looked like. So chic.
Really?
She made herself, but Phyllis Diller made herself wacko, because in those days, you had to be, that's what you had to look like if you're going to be a comic. You couldn't walk on stage and look pretty. They got confused. They thought you were going to sing any minute. I guess that was my breakthrough, trying to look human. My breakthrough was I allowed lady comedians to shower. Well, I was always going to be an actress. There was no question about it. And in my early days, that's what I did. I was in a lot of off, sometimes up above Broadway, like fifth floor walk-ups. And one of the shows I did was called Driftwood. It was so terrible they couldn't get anybody. So they had a girl named Barbara Streisand that she played the lead. She was still in high school. She had like a beat Midwood pin on, you know, it was like high school. And I got the part as her lover because it was made, it was written for a man, but no, you know, any actor would read it and go, what are you, crazy? So I said, make them lesbian. So I got to kiss Babs. And we still talk about it. She comes over to me whenever we're at a party and she says, hello, Joan Malinsky, which is my real name. And that's what it was in the program. And I say, hello, Barbara, with all the A's, because she was B-A-R-A. I was everybody's office temporary. That was what I was, and I was Phi Beta Kappa, and I was very smart. And I was making the rounds and doing temporary work. But to get into the offices, I would make the secretaries laugh, because then they would remember you and they'd say to the agent, you never get into the agent. They say, she's a funny girl, you should see her, you know. And one secretary said to me, my husband's a comic, and he makes $6 a night doing comedy. I thought that's more than I'm making as a Kelly girl. And I went to see him, and I thought, I can do that. That's stupid. That's nothing, I can do that. And that's how I started. Little did I know, you can't just say, I can do that.
Well, I think the thing that impresses me so much about you is that you would then go to these strip clubs and just get humiliated and have a difficult time. And yet you stuck with it. Everybody else on earth would have quit.
I played places that if Melissa, my daughter, ever said she's going to, I would say, I would lock her up and chain her. I played always, I changed my name to Pepper January, and I gave me a logo, Comedy with Spice. An agent said, that'll get you the jobs. So they would book me into strip joints, and then I would come out in my prom dress, that's what I was wearing at the time from my college days, and I was fired every first night for years, to the point that the most humiliating thing isn't being fired, it's having to go back and get your makeup and your clothing. So I was playing Vegas, I was headlining in Vegas, And I would take my stuff up from the dressing room every night in case they fired me. That's how tough those days were. That's what you remember that. I remember being fired one night on Fire Island, and the owner said, "I'll give you the money in the morning at the ferry." And I was standing at the ferry, no money, and he never came. I had a lot of tough experiences, a lot of bad. I was playing one place, and while I was on stage, they said over the loudspeaker, "Get her off." That's tough. I've had it was a rough go, very rough go. But 4 rough goes, and then one night you get an audience that you just got, and they connected with you, and that kept you going through the next 4 rough goes or 5 rough goes. There was always that moment when you connected somewhere along the line. And that just kept, there was no question. I mean, this is what I was doing. I was driven. I used to say I was a Jewish nun. It was a calling. It was not a choice. It was not a choice. It was a calling. From the time I was 3 years old and could put thoughts together, that was it. I sat in the movie theater in Brooklyn with my mother watching Margaret O'Brien in Journey for Margaret. That was the name of the movie. And I'm sitting there, maybe 5, thinking, this is a mistake. I should be up there. She should be watching me. Let her eat the good Ruth. You need the drive. I still have the drive. I still have the drive. I'm in my late 70s, and I am at a 3 a.m. call for Fashion Police. I am taking a red eye back that night so I can go on stage in Chicago the next night. Then I fly. The drive is insane. Insane. It's like a druggie. I watch my assistants drop in the airport. I step over assistants. It's a drive. It's a drive. And when people say you're going to retire and do what? Tell me what. Because I love, get on stage. This is it. It's life. I don't know why I'm doing it. I am so happy when I'm performing. I am truly happy when that's it. When it's a good night, I'm high. I'm sailing home. Anything, I'm a drug addict. There is no drug of choice. I love the business. Love the business. Carol is not an ad-libber, which I found out, which is very interesting. Carol is a script lady. We worked together on Joan and Melissa, my reality show, and we said, well, we'll just do this, we'll just do that. And she wanted it very exact. And I thought, oh, God, what is this? And then we watched her on film, and she is brilliant. Give her her boundary, or give her what she's supposed, give her her task, and no one can touch her. Amazing, amazing. And the timing is perfection. The best sketch, the best absolutely sketch comedian ever, I think, certainly in this generation. I mean, she was a joy to work with. And once she got it set, it was set. I watched the show when it was on and always laughed. And she was also very generous. Some comedians are not so generous of spirit. She had the best around her because somewhere she knew she was the best. So they just added. She wasn't frightened that they might diminish what she was doing. Well, you have to see me on stage. I'm very physical. Okay. What's his name? Who? The director? He directed Australia. Baz Luhrmann. Baz Luhrmann. I'm very physical. Baz Luhrmann came back and said, "You work like a rock star." He said, I throw myself. I'm on the floor. I'm on my knees. When I make my costumes for stage, I always say, build them like a truck driver. We tried to be a team, and if somebody had just picked us up, he's brilliant and great ad-libber, and he came over to my apartment, and I still remember he did a funny Indian man, I don't even know what. Yeah, we could have been Nichols and May. So smart, Dick. So funny. So brilliant. I grew up teenage. Yeah, Mike Nichols and Elaine May. That was the album you put on over and over and over and over again. Oh God, yes. And again, they talked about subjects you really shouldn't talk about. They were really breaking through at the time, and she was so smart. Smart. All lady comics are smart. I don't know. Men comics don't have to be so smart. Women comics, just nobody's given us a leg up. We have to do it ourselves. We usually have to write it ourselves. We have to figure out where we can fit in ourselves. And so you find out these are very smart girls. Joan Collins was an amazing guest because she's fearless, absolutely fearless. And I was hosting Carson one night, and I said to her, which was very wild for those days, okay, who's the best man you ever slept with? Because we know you've slept with a lot. And she said to me, your husband. Now that's great. That's great. And that she did not know the question was coming. And she was always willing to play. Terrific guest. The interesting thing with Carson, I was the first permanent guest host ever. And they still, very into this. She was the first woman guest host. No. I was the first permanent guest host. Man, woman, child, dog, Hitler, anybody. But I was the first woman also to put on. And that was very daring of them and very smart. It was, again, no competition to him. Because he knew from the beginning they would never give it to a woman. Very smart of him. Yeah, I was the first woman in late night. And the numbers were just fine. It was a very personal reason we went off the air, which I don't want to really go in here.
That's
yeah.
Right. But I did want to ask what you...
But we didn't go off. The numbers were just fine. I've never thought about being a breakthrough for women. I thought I got my own show, and I deserve my own show. I think I'm a very, very good late night host. But it was startling for people that a woman could handle the show. You know, you hear all these stupid things. Men don't want to see a woman in that position of power, so they won't watch. And women want to watch a sexy man behind a desk. There's always a reason why they're not using a woman. There's always a reason. My daytime show, which came afterwards, I had a lot of freedom, and I won my Emmy for that and all that stuff. And that was great because I got to ask questions, and I love asking questions. I love being funny, but I love that part of it too because I'm naturally curious. I'm a very good person at a dinner because I will ask the person next to me all about themselves. Most of the comics go from stand-up to sitcom. And it never fell in my lap. I only wish to hell it had fallen in my lap. I would be a rich woman today. I'm doing fine, but I'm doing fine on club dates. I am not Jerry Seinfeld. Can you imagine? He wasn't even a headliner. I mean, and he had a very nice act, but there was nobody would say, "Oh my God, did you catch that boy Jerry Seinfeld?" He was good. And then, my God, what has happened to his life? How lucky! Jerry Seinfeld is lovely. I'm not knocking Jerry Seinfeld, but he's perfectly average. That got lucky, and got lucky to the point of $500 million lucky. You know, that's okay. Anytime, any comedian, they want to put you in a sitcom, run, don't walk.
So,
I was never asked to be in a sitcom. Nobody ever came to me and said, let's do Oh, That Joan, or Joni's House. No, nobody ever, that script never came across my desk. Any form of performing is a fun form for me. That's the truth. It's performing, I'm there. And I love the reality show. I love the fun of weaving humor into reality. And it's very challenging because it has to be real and it has to be funny real. And that's very different from a sitcom. You can't and the pie goes to you, you know, and that's the end of the scene. No, no, no. You wouldn't say that in your kitchen. It's a very different kind of humor, and it's very challenging. Well, what we do is, luckily my life and Melissa's life, as everyone says, oh boy, this is a sitcom. But there's always, I mean, we have for example, we had a friend who was the uber wasp. I mean, I think he was born, he could have been born in a Hitler Youth uniform. And he came to us and said, I am becoming a Jew and I want you to give me a bar mitzvah. And I said, this is the reality show. So we took it and we made him the bar mitzvah. So we took reality, but we embellished the reality, if that makes sense to you. And that's what reality shows really are. You take the reality and you move it into the next level of reality. On stage, you are the lion tamer. There is no question about it. You can never let them just tell you what's funny. You know what's funny, and they must come along to you. Absolutely. And I yell at them. So that's where, and I have fun with them. I come out, I say the most outrageous first line I can find. Because, and half the time they go, and I go, you think that's bad? Wait till we get to the Auschwitz jokes. And it sets what we're going to do tonight. And it sets, it's going to be wild, and it's going to be outrageous, and it's going to be funny, and you come along. But if you're going to get upset because I just did a Casey Anthony joke, then nobody's going to have a good time here, because then you're setting what the rules are. So when strangers come up to me in the street and say, I use your line when I talk to clients, or I do this, and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. Or when they'll say, God, when you said this, it was so funny, I've already forgotten the line. I go, that's a funny line. I have to put that back in the act. If I did my stage persona in real life, nobody would work for me. No, I'm just the opposite in real life. And people are very surprised, people that work with me and stuff, that are very surprised. I say thank you, I think, a little too much. Everybody, you know, we're all made up of so many layers and so many layers. And I love coming. I have never had the need for a psychiatrist, because I get it all, whatever's upsetting me goes right out on stage, and I make it funny, and therefore you can deal, anything that's funny, you can deal with. And I do Auschwitz jokes, because I want them to remember. But I do it in a funny way. I don't like when the ladies come up and say, oh, you broke barriers for women. You're gonna go, I'm still breaking barriers. That's starting with it. And I can still take you, sweetheart, with both hands tied behind my back. So I don't like all that adulation. I was on Comic Relief, and it was probably one of the lowest periods of my life. And it was at Radio City Music Hall. And I walked in, and they wanted to sit me with Carl Reiner and Phyllis Diller, you know, the grand old. I thought, I went on. I said, no. I'm not going to be grouped with that. So just let me do 5 minutes. And I went on, and I never say this. I was like, blew them fucking away. And I walked off stage, and they said, are you coming back for the finale yet? And I said, no. And I went home. No, don't talk to me. Don't. You asked me, do I want to be am I proud to be a pioneer? I'm not I'm still in the trenches. I'm still breaking ground. I have never spent 2 minutes saying, well, I just did that. I'm still looking for the new frontier. I'm still in my astronaut suit. And I will go on stage, and I still think I'm funnier than any of my contemporaries that I'm working with now. No question about it. And I really, I love it when people say, I can't follow you. You want to go, damn right you can't follow me. Can't follow this one. Not yet. I don't like it. I see the tapes of myself, not funny. The timing is different. And I'm amazed that Ed Sullivan was generous enough to put me on. I look at some of those old tapes and go, oh, God, no, don't. But it was a different time. It was a softer time. Comedy was softer. And you evolve with what's happening around you. And I was the first one to be a stand-up and be pregnant and got taken to task for it. I was in Chicago at Mr. Kelly's, and I had gone to Bergdorf Goodman, and they had outfitted me in the two most beautiful maternity dresses. One was pale green, one was pale taupe. I mean, glorious dresses. And I was on stage headlining, very funny, and all the critics talked about was, how dare a pregnant woman come on stage? Isn't that interesting? I was 8 months pregnant, and Ed Sullivan said to me, I soon hear you. No, I was 8 months pregnant, and on the Sullivan show, they said, you can't mention pregnant. I'm a house. I'm a tent with a bow. And I had to come out and say, Mr. Sullivan, pretty soon I'll be hearing the pitter-patter of little feet. So that was breaking ground. Lucille Ball did it on her sitcom, but I said, you can stand up, and you can sit on the Carson show, and you can be pregnant, and talk about it. I remember sitting on the Carson show, and he said, how I was 13 days after Melissa was born, and Carson said, how did it go? I said, well, my water broke and my dog drowned, but otherwise, it's fine. And there was a gasp, but then a laugh. I'm a preparer. Some women, I know I'm an ad-libber. My best jokes come right off the top of my head, but I prepare for the bad nights because I start out with such difficult times. I won't walk in, they'll say, oh, say a few words at Harry's birthday, you know, like my cousin. I work for 4 weeks on what I'm going to say about Harry. I'm a tremendous preparer, and that's why on television I can do it because I work all day. No, I'm not walking out when Jimmy Fallon says to me, so what's new? I know what's new. Being in the theater, the show business, the comedy, it's all one to me, all one to me. And it was a calling, and there was no backup. I couldn't wait to get out of college to do it. You know, this was it. I had a little phrase to myself, I want to play with the big boys. I didn't even know what I was talking about. But that's what I used to say. As a freshman in college, I got to get out of here. I want to play with the big boys. I want to play with the big boys. And there was no backup. There was no teaching certificate. And I went to Barnard. There was no, well, it's okay, she can be a teacher. And my parents, my sister was a lawyer and graduated, youngest woman graduate of Columbia Law School. So if I had said I want to go to law school, I think I'll change my mind, I'll go to medical school, they would have said, with pleasure, go. I know this is what I had to do. It sounds so dramatic. Had to do it. Still have to do it. I'm competitive. Do you know? I am competitive with 20-year-old. I'll see a 20-year-old doing something on television, 20-year-old comedian, and I'll say, I could do that. Why aren't I doing that? Always the same path. What makes me laugh is someone that just goes at it and doesn't hold boundaries. I remember the first time I saw Ali G. Blew me out of my seat when he was doing, I think it was a special for PBS. Little Britain. I saw Little Britain over in England, and it's people that just do it. Do it. Don't hold anything back. Go for it. That will make me laugh. Anyone that's a little cautious, I hate when they start. I hate when a comic goes, well, I really love Lucille Ball, but one night she did come to me and say, bullshit. Don't give me that. Don't give yourself the excuse or the apology before you're doing the joke. I hate people like that. Well, she's a very good friend, so it hurts me to say this, but no. Just say it. She's a tramp. Her knees are in different time zones. Just say it.